I think, Gautam, can you start the case? So,
So this is the X-ray of the wrist
okay,
with a distal radius and distal ulna showing defect between the scapula and lunate.
okay, very
Mm,
good.
this is not a Terry Thomas sign.
This is not a Terry Thompson sign. What is it? What is the sign you said?
Terry Thomas.
Terry Thompson. So, what it implies?
This is scapulonate dissociation.
Okay, so there is a gap between scapholunate. So it is a what do you mean by Terry Thomas sign?
So actually, it was a comedian in the American series which has a middle tooth that was missing. So that on that
Okay,
basis, they have started with Terry Thomas sign.
okay. So if you take a lateral view in this case, so what do you expect in the lateral view, Gautam?
So,
How the position of the lunate will be?
so lunate will be facing down rather than the up.
Okay, so you meant to say that the lunate will be having a VC pattern, means it will be facing volar side. Am I right?
Yes, sir. DC. Yeah.
Yeah, so I just want to remind everybody, especially the first year and second year guys, scaphoid, lunate, and trichotrum, it's like three siblings. You understand?
Yes.
Okay, so they hold the hands together. So scaphoid takes the entire carpal bones volar side. Okay, the scaphoid takes the entire carpal bone towards the volar side, and the trichotrum lift the carpal bones towards the dorsal side. Hope you understand.
Yes.
Okay, so the scaphoid tries to take the attached carpal bones, means between the scaphoid and the lunate and the trichotrum, they are actually holding hands with the ligaments. And scaphoid being a palmar flex bone, it pulls the carpus towards the volar side. And the trichotrum try to lift it up the carpal, and the lunate is in the center, so it is actually facing straightwards. So if this connection between the scaphoid and the lunate breaks, what happens to the lunate? It goes down or it goes up? Gautam, it's again to you. So what do you expect, a VC pattern or a DC pattern? VC pattern and DC pattern actually means how the scaphoid, the lunate is going to face after having a scapholunate injury. So is it going to face down or is it going to face up? Dorsal.
The DC dorsal because it's
Yeah, so that is what I want to. So if you having a break here, the lunate goes into dorsal because the scaphoid is the bone which pulls the lunate palmarward. Hope you understand.
yes.
So if there is a break there, the pull of the scaphoid has gone. So the trichotrum takes the lunate to dorsal surface. So imagine if the lunate and trichotrum have a dissociation here, how the lunate will be?
Lunate will go to the volar VC.
Volar, simple. So now you understand the concept.
Yeah.
So based upon the ligament attachments, we can consider these three as siblings, and the scaphoid takes the carpal bones volarward and the trichotrum pulls it dorsalward. Is it clear? So
Yes.
in a scapholunate dissociation, so normally the lunate goes into dorsal, DC pattern.
Yes.
Is it clear, Gautam?
Yes.
Yeah. So the next common question, which is commonly asked for your OSCE, is between the scapholunate ligament injury, when it is torn off, where is it avulsed commonly from? From the scaphoid or from the lunate? So where is it commonly avulsed from? Any idea, Gautam?
No, sir.
Yeah. So why is it important? Because when you avulse having a ligament from here, you need to have a footprint for fixing it up. So the footprint is usually made by drilling tunnels on. So you need to identify where the ligament is avulsed from. And it is good to know where is the most likely site. So nowadays you don't drill bones, you use a suture angler. So if you see a scaphoid lunate repair, most of the time you find the footprint which is fixed is on the lunate. That means that the scaphoid lunate ligament is avulsed commonly from which bone?
Lunate.
Lunate. Perfect. Okay. So you can see the angles are most commonly seen in the lunate in this area because the scaphoid and lunate has a ligament and which is torn commonly from the lunate, and you have the scaphoid lunate dissociation, and it can further extend to other carpal bones, and you can have a perilunate dislocation. So, Srijit, can you say the difference between a perilunate dislocation and a lunate dislocation? Any idea, Srijit? Srijit, can you answer this? Sunit, anybody? What is the difference between a lunate dislocation and a perilunate dislocation? Sunit Yadav?
Sir, in the case of lunate dislocation, it might get ruptured from both the triquetrum and scaphoid.
Okay.
You can displace.
And in a perilunate?
It gets from one side and it is still remaining. The gap increases on the side, one side.
Okay. So I will show you few x-rays, then you will understand it better. So now we are very well seeing the x-ray of a AP view. So Dr. Gautam has described that there is a gap between these two, and you can say that is the Terry Thompson sign. He's a comedian, he has nicely said. But other than that, if you see the shape of the scaphoid, because of the lack of support from the lunate, it goes into further palmar flexion. And you can see there is a ring sign. So this ring sign is a classic sign of scaphoid being palmar flexed. Is it clear?
Yes.
Sunit?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So in this X-ray, you can say, so instead of saying that there is a gap between here, I would suggest to say initially the arc. There are two arcs here. And to what is these arcs are known as?
Gilula lines.
Cellular lines.
Very good, very good, perfect. So there is a lesser arc and these are a greater arc, and both these, you can see that the greater arc is disrupted. Okay, this is somewhat maintained. So the disruption of the, your description should say that the arcs are disrupted and there is a palmar flexion of the scaphoid, which is implied by the ring sign, and there is obvious gap between the scaphoid and lunate, implying that there can be a dissociation. Okay, so these are the things you can see in a AP view. In a lateral view, what are the things you can see? If you take a normal lateral view, you can see the arc between the scaphoid and the lunate. What is this normal arc angle? Any idea? Between this is the lunate bone.
10 to 15
Yeah,
degrees.
it's around 60 degree. So all your DCVC is based upon how the lunate is positioned. So if you have a scaphoid lunate dissociation, the lunate face dorsally because the rupture between scaphoid and lunate and the pull of the scaphoid will be nullified. So with this, the scaphoid will get further palmar flexed or dorsiflexed, Anto, if there is a scaphoid lunate dissociation.
Then it will be palmar flexed.
Palmar flex.
Sorry,
Further palmar flex. Yeah. No, the lunate will go for dorsiflexion. The scaphoid will go into further palmar flexion because the support from the lunate will is gone. So the normal angle between the lunate and the scaphoid will be further increased or decreased, Ando?
Increased.
It will be increased. Normally it is 60 because the lunate is going into dorsal surface and the scaphoid going into more volar. The angle will be much more increased. And if you draw a line between the capitate and the scaphoid, the angle will be increased or decreased. Anto?
Angle will be decreased.
See, the capitate remains in that position. the scaphoid is going down,
Oh,
so the angle
okay.
between scaphoid and the capitate will be
Increased. Okay.
increased. Definitely. Is it clear? I'm just making different possibilities and make you understand. These are the things which difficult to grasp when I was a PG. That's why I'm making some effort to make you understand. Okay, so this is the lunate, this is the scaphoid, and if there is a disruption, the scaphoid further palmar flex, and the gap between the scaphoid and the lunate will further increase or decrease, Anto?
Increase.
Increase, very good. And the lunate, if there is a disruption there, the lunate will face upward or dorsal. Then it is known as a VC pattern or DC pattern. Anto?
DC pattern.
DC pattern. And if there is a disruption between lunate and triquetrum, the scaphoid will further palmar flex along with lunate and making it a which pattern?
VC pattern.
Lunate and VC
VC.
pattern. Is it clear now? Yeah. So this
sir.
is VC and DC. It's nothing difficult to understand, and you need to understand that in case of a perilunate dislocation. So what it implying? The dislocation is happening around the lunate. So when you take a lateral view, you can see the distal radius and lunate is still maintaining its contact. The rest of the carpus dislocates. So what happens in a lunate dislocation? The entire carpus stays there and the lunate only get dislocates. Okay, so what is the difference between perilunate and lunate dislocation, Sanjeev? Sanjeev, can you hear me? Please unmute yourself.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So what is the difference between perilunate dislocation and lunate dislocation?
Mm,
Are you following?
yes.
So can you say what is the difference between perilunate dislocation and lunate dislocation?
Mm,
Do you
So
need
Sanjeev
somebody's
just
help?
now joined, it seems. Yes, sir.
Just now. Okay. Sheena, Sheena, are you there? Sheena?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Hello.
So, do you understood what I meant by these two? Can you explain?
Yes, sir. Yeah, sir.
Yeah,
In
what-
perilunate dislocation, the entire
Yeah.
carpal bone dislocate, except but the lunate stays normal.
Oh, very good.
But
Very
in
good.
lunate dislocation, the lunate dislocate, the carpal bone, other carpal bone remains same.
Yeah. So we'll see the lateral difference between these two. So of these two, here you can see the lunate as dislocated. Okay. The other carpus, the capitate, everything is there only. So this is a lunate dislocation or perilunate dislocation? Sheena?
Lunate dislocation.
Lunate dislocation. So this looks
Lunate
like a, yeah. So this looks
Lunate
like a
dislocation.
cup which is tilted off. Okay. So this is a tilted cup sign. So what do you mean by tilted cup sign? That is classic of which dislocation? Lunate or perilunate?
Lunate.
Lunate dislocation.
Lunate dislocation. So that is a
Lunate.
classic appearance.
Lunate
Yeah.
dislocation.
And when you take an AP view, the same lunate dislocation will have an overlap between the lunate and capitate, which looks like a pie, the pie which you eat. So what is this pie sign? The pie
Pie.
sign in AP is a classic sign of
Lunate dislocation.
lunate or perilunate?
Lunate dislocation.
Lunate.
Lunate dislocation.
Lunate
Lunate
dislocation.
dislocation.
So now it is very clear for you. So right from the scapholunate disruption, the ligament injuries can further progress and you can have a lunate dislocation or a perilunate dislocation like this. Here you can see the carpus is dislocated, but the lunate and the radius is maintaining its alignment. You can see that. So this is a picture of lunate dislocation or perilunate.
Perilunate.
It's a
Very
classic
good.
sign. So the what are the two signs you can expect in a lunate dislocation, Sheena?
Tilted cup sign and pie sign.
Yeah, and pie sign. Very good. But in a perilunate dislocation, you can't see these two. Nanda, you can see that the carpus. So we'll move on to the next topic. Okay, is it clear?
Yes.
So everybody understood what is a VC, DC, perilunate, lunate dislocation. What are the sequence of injury? Okay, Anto, where is the most common site of disruption, scapholunate injury? Scaphoid or lunate?
Lunate. Commonly
Yeah, perfect. I hope that that's clear for you. So we'll move on to the next this thing. Here you can see two X-rays. One is of the thumb. There is a fracture, and one is a fracture of the fifth metacarpal. So Johnson, are you there? So what are the names of these two? Both are identical almost with respect to the pathology of deformity.
So the fifth
Johnson?
metacarpal, yes, sir. The fifth metacarpal fracture is Boxer's fracture,
Okay. And
and
the first one?
uh,
This one?
Rolando fracture, sir.
Okay.
Then
So anybody else want to modify it? Varsha, can you? It is a roller fracture. So these fractures, these fractures you see in day-to-day practice. Varsha, can you help him?
Bennett and reverse fracture. Bennett's and reverse fracture.
Yeah.
So the second one is
Boxers
Bennett's fracture.
and Bennett, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So it is distinct, different from a Rolando. So let's start with this.
T or Y
Rolando is a, it's a
Rolando
complete
is
articular
shape,
fracture.
comminuted intraarticular.
So Rolando and a Bennett is different. Both are intraarticular fractures. But a Rolando is something you can say like a Y-shaped
Y-shaped
fracture.
or T-shaped.
So there will be two articular fragments which are not connected with the shaft.
Shaft.
So the articular fractures are not connected with the shaft. It is something like a Y. That is a class of fracture. Here you can see there is an articular fracture which is attached to the second metacarpal base with some ligaments. And this bone, after getting fractured, is pulled by something here. And it is getting misplaced. Yeah. So which is the muscle?
Abductor pollicis.
Abductor pollicis
Longest.
longus.
Oh,
Perfect. So
brevis.
this is the thing. So when you how you reduce this fracture, Varsha?
You abduct it and extend, sir.
Okay. So basic is that when you want to you do it in the direction. If it is an abductor pollicis, you further abduct it. Okay. And if it is an extensor, which is attached, you further extend it. With abduction and the pressure over here, you can transfix this bone to this bone, but this fracture is usually have a very smaller fragment here, so this hold will not be adequate. So you have to transfix to either second metacarpal or to the bone below. Which is this bone below?
Trapezius.
Okay. So you have to use it because holding this may not be enough because this fragment will not be able to hold this large shaft, and the deforming force is abductor pollicis longus. So same way. So what is this fracture, Anto? Anto, what is this fracture?
Fracture base of fifth metacarpal.
Okay, that's a perfect answer. So this is similar like a Bennett. So unlike a Boxer fracture usually happens in the neck of the fifth metacarpal. So that's what you should know. So a Boxer fracture is also a fracture of fifth metacarpal, but that normally happens in the which area, Johnson?
Neck of
neck, sir, neck.
A Boxer fracture, it's in the neck, and this gets palmar flexed. Okay, so here the fracture is in the base of fifth metacarpal, and there is a deforming force. You can see this is pulled up, and this fracture is something like a Bennett, and it is called as a reverse Bennett fracture. So Johnson, can you identify which is the muscle or the tendon insertion which pulls this fragment down? Any idea?
No, sir.
Srijit, any idea?
No, sir.
Okay. Anybody? Varsha?
No, sir.
No? Okay. So we'll show you this. So this is a Bennett. The deforming force is abductor pollicis longus, and this is reverse Bennett. The deforming force is extensor carpi ulnaris. So both needs to be fixed because of this deforming force has to be counteracted. And this fragment is usually very small, and you need to transfix to the adjacent carpal bones or metacarpal base. Okay. So Ijaz, what is the deforming force in case of a reverse Bennett fracture?
Extensor carpi ulnaris.
Very good. And what is the deforming force in case of a Bennett fracture?
Abductor pollicis longus.
Very good. What is the difference between abductor pollicis longus and I'm saying that Rolando fracture and Bennett fracture?
So Rolando fracture, Y-shaped fracture, and that the articular fragments will be separate from the shaft.
Very good, excellent. So most of the time you cannot fix with the KYS alone in a Rolando fracture. Most of the time you have to use a plate or other thing because there is no attachment with the articular surface with the metaphyseal shaft. Okay, we'll move on to the next case. So here you can see the thumb with the radial collateral ligament and ulnar collateral ligament. And this ulnar collateral ligament is a very common OST question. Okay. Anybody names for ulnar collateral? Srijit, you want to answer?
I didn't hear the question, sir.
What is the common name? Means the colloquial name you give for ulnar collateral ligament injury.
Gamekeeper's thumb.
Gamekeeper's thumb. Very good. Anybody else?
Skiers.
Skiers thumb. Very good. So who has answered gamekeeper's thumb? Srijit, you have answered. No? So why is it called as gamekeeper thumb?
Sir, that animal that when we for killing that, sir, I don't know to exact terminology.
Twisting the neck of
Poultry animals might get injured when we use to twist the neck.
Yeah, I think you guys are really great because till I completed my MS exam, I thought that it is because of the goalie and other people who have this ball to collect, and it is because of that. So can you unmute if you have any disturbance there? So mute yourself when you have. So it is the ulnar collateral ligament injuries because of the gamekeeper means goalie of the football or any other. But actually, as you have rightly said, the Varsha and Srijit have rightly said, it is because of the repeated culling of the animals, because they keep the animal head between the thumb and the index finger, and the twist with the and repeated culling causes ligament injury, and that's why it is known as a gamekeeper, because a game as it's also known as a wild bird. So something like that. So a gamekeeper thumb has nothing to do with a gamekeeper of a it is also as a skier. Take an X-ray if you have a suspicion of collateral ligament injury. So most of the time you can take an X-ray. If it is got a bony avulsion, you can identify with it. But sometimes it may not be having a bony avulsion. So you need to use a stress X-ray. So anybody, how do you take a stress X-ray in case of ulnar collateral ligament injury? Johnny Panikar, any idea how you take a stress X-ray?
No, sir. Not sure.
Akhil?
No, sir.
No. Shinas?
Sorry, sir. No.
No idea. So I'll show you.
Sir, I think we can
Hyperextending
put
the
one
thumb,
rubber
sir.
band
Yeah. Use a rubber band.
between both the thumbs of the both hands and try abduct.
Okay, okay. So that is the way, but normally it is done in this way. You can see, as he has rightly said, you keep a rubber band between both the thumbs, but you need to have a spacer in between. Then only you have the abduction force equally distributed. So if it is a large fragment, you don't need this sort of a stress X-ray, but if it is purely ligament injury, you need to assess the space between this. So here you have the normal which to compare. So that's the advantage of using a stress X-ray like this. Is it clear? Okay, so here you can see, so which side it is ulnar collateral is injured, left or right? Akhil? So which side of this? This is left. So this is left and this is right. So where is the ulnar collateral ligament injury?
Left side.
Left side. So you can see there is the gap is further increased, but here the gap is not that much increased. So here is the ulnar collateral ligament injury. So most of the time, if it is undisplaced with a minimal bony conservative treatment helps, but sometimes it will not heal. So what is the common reason for not healing is a Steiner lesion. So what do you mean by a Steiner lesion? Shyam? Any idea? Steiner lesion?
Sir, the collaterals, there will be avulsion fracture with the ulnar
Okay,
collateral ligament. With the ulnar
Okay.
collateral ligament.
Okay. There is an avulsion fracture, but what is a Steiner lesion?
The ulnar collateral they get interrupted between the
Between the abductor.
Adductor.
So Varsha, what you are saying?
I think the adductor tendon will get interposed, sir.
So the
Yeah,
ulnar
very
collateral
good, very good. So because of, yeah, so if the ulnar collateral falls in its position, it has got a tendency to heal. It's got a chance to heal. But if it falls on something else, it will not be in the anatomical position. So that is known as a Steiner lesion. So here you can see the collateral is supposed to be underneath the adductor tendon. Okay. So this is adductor pollicis, and if this ligament is falling above the adductor tendon, the chances of it healing is less. So what do you need to do? You need to take this out and place it underneath the adductor tendon, and it needs to be stitched up. And that's the importance of identifying a Steiner lesion. Nandu, can you say any other Steiner lesion? Or can you say what is a Steiner lesion of a knee? Have you heard about a Steiner lesion in case of knee joint?
I'm not sure. Sir.
Anto? Not sure. Anybody?
Put in the proximal fibula.
Akhil?
Arcuate fracture, sir.
Not
MCL
exactly.
injury. MCL injury.
Very good, very good. Who said that?
Akhil sir.
Yeah, complete it. Yeah, Akhil, yeah, complete it.
Tibia side avulsion of MCL. Not sure. Sir.
Very good. So what happens exactly like this is that if you imagine this is femur and this is tibia, this MCL gets strips off and falls on the pes anserinus. So if the MCL which is avulsed from the tibia, if it is under the pes only, it has got a chance to heal. So if the MCL which is avulsed go above the pes and lies there, it is not going to reattach. So that is the reason the prognosis of a MCL tear, if it is got a tenderness in the femur side, is better than a tibial side, because there is nothing like a Steiner lesion in case of a femoral attachment. The MCL has got two attachments, one in the near the medial femoral epicondyle and one in the tibia lower down. So if it is avulsed from the tibia, and which you can easily identify by palpating. So where you have the tenderness, that area is the most likely area of disruption. So a Steiner lesion is only expected in case of a tibial lesion. So whenever you have an MCL injury, grade 1 or grade 2, and if you identify the tenderness is more towards the tibia, then you have to really worry about a Steiner lesion, because sometimes the MCL flips over and lies over the pes tendons. But if it is on the femoral side, the chances of a Steiner lesion is very less likely and the healing is better. So what is Shinas? What is a Steiner lesion in case of a collateral ligament injury?
Sir, for knee. Hello?
For the thumb?
Sir, for the thumb, the adductor aponeurosis get in between the ulnar collateral ligament.
Okay, and the healing doesn't take place unless you don't do a intervention. Okay, is it clear? We'll go to the next case. Okay, so Joni, can you read this X-ray? Johnsy, sorry.
Yes, one second. This is a plain X-ray of a skeletal mature person.
Okay, very good.
Showing the distal radius and ulna and the carpal bones.
Okay.
And there is a lateral joint space narrowing.
Okay, very good.
And a scaphoid fracture. And, there is a scaphoid fracture.
Okay.
Due to avascular necrosis of probably.
Okay, so why you said there is a avascular necrosis?
Because it looks like there is a non-union, sir. It's been
okay. So definitely you can say a non-union there, because there is a fracture of the scaphoid, and as you rightly said, the articular surface is reduced. So there is changes of arthritis. There is a non-union, but how you can say there is avascular necrosis? So what happens to the bone if there is avascular necrosis? It will be osteodenser or osteolytic?
Osteolytic.
So who all agree with him? So whenever there is reduced, it will be osteodense. Okay. So if you remember the class Dr. Rajesh has taken, he explained Hawkins sign. Shyam, can you explain what is a Hawkins sign? Hawkins sign.
In case of a talus fracture,
Very good.
and if the patient, if there is a signs of healing, then we see a subchondral sclerosis is noted. That shows that there is regaining of vascularity.
So subchondral sclerosis or subchondral?
Sorry, the subchondral.
Subchondral osteopenia.
Osteopenia. So that is something. So whenever you see radio density, that means that avascular. So you can make out, but it is very difficult to see by X-ray alone. So most of the time you rely on MRI for identifying. So whenever you are dealing a scaphoid non-union, just fixing the bone alone may not be good enough. So you need to identify how good the bone is, and also identify is there any arthritic changes. So what is the difference if there is reduced blood supply to this fragment? Is there any difference in the treatment? Akim?
So if there is adequate blood supply, we can do open reduction internal fixation with bone grafting.
Okay.
And if it's not
so
there,
if there is reduced blood supply,
so we have to remove that and fuse the bones. Or vascularized pedicle graft.
Yeah. So if the blood supply is reduced and you feel the joint can be salvaged, then it is good to use a graft which has got a vascular pedicle. So there are many grafts which are available. So you can take it from the dorsal aspect of the wrist itself, or you can take it from a free vascularized graft from medial femoral condyle. There are many areas where you can take from. So the vascularized graft is very important if the blood supply to the fragment is reduced. But if it is totally cystic and necrosed, then there is then you cannot do the fixation alone. But in this case, so what is this stage? So there is a scaphoid non-union and there is arthritic changes. So this is known as SNAC. What is SNAC? Shyam? SNAC.
Scaphoid non-union advanced collapse.
Okay, so that is what. So you can have similar like scaphoid non-union advanced this. You can have after a scaphoid ligament, the lunate dissociation. So the difference between SLAC and SNAC is that here the cause is scaphoid non-union. In the previous one is scaphoid and lunate dissociation. Okay. So this is both having carpal bone. So in this case, if you just fix this bone alone, it is still going to be painful because the styloid is, you can see, like a sharp. So most of the time you need to do a styloidectomy. If this is salvageable, then you can go for a bone grafting. So there are many ways you can do a bone grafting. So what are the different techniques of bone grafting? Anybody? Shyam? Non-vascularized bone graft.
So we can go for a cancer.
Yeah, so normally a cancellous bone is preferred, but sometimes you have deformity. For deformity correction, cancellous bone alone will not help you because cancellous will just collapse. So if there is a large deformity, you need to correct it. You need a strut there. So in that case, you take a cortico-cancellous bone. But if there is just non-union without a deformity, then you can use a cancellous bone. So the different techniques for grafting is, one is interposition, means just keeping a graft there and fixing it up. Or you can make a trough in the proximal and distal bone and keep a bone in connection. So example of a graft by making a trough. Anybody? Sunit? A trough is made in the proximal and distal and a graft is placed like this. That is a Matthew-Roos. Matthew-Roos is a common technique where you use a bone graft and a trough is made, but it can be an interpositional also. But if the vascularity is reduced, then it is good to use a, what sort of a graft? Shyam?
Vascularized.
Vascularized. The common sites of vascularized graft?
So we can take it from the fibula.
Okay.
But in a
so normally you don't take it from fibula. So
yes,
these are standard. Yeah. Okay. So it's good to know about word about the vascularized graft. Okay. So this is what happens to the scaphoid with non-union if it is prolonged. You can see the shape of the scaphoid changes. You can see this is the rest. Initially it has got a 60-degree angle, but now it has changed its shape. So for correcting the shape, you need to interpose a cortico-cancellous graft. So what is this deformity known as, Srijit?
Scaphoid hump.
Yeah. So when you are doing a scaphoid non-union, you have to correct this with a wedge-shaped graft so that the deformity is corrected. So this is known as a, what deformity? Varsha, you were saying something?
Humpback deformity.
Humpback deformity. Very good. So this is also important. So a scaphoid non-union correction doesn't mean that achieving union between the bone. You need to correct the humpback deformity if it is present. And what is the type of pattern in the lunate you can expect in a scaphoid non-union? DC or DC? Gautam, can you explain? A scaphoid non-union, what sort of a pattern? VC pattern or DC pattern in long term? If you answer this, yeah?
So since the scaphoid is non-union, so the lunate will move, so it will go for the dorsal. It will take the half
very
of
good, very
dorsal.
good. Yeah, so I hope that my effort to explain it is fulfilled. Okay, nicely explained. That's it. So when it goes into non-union, the major part of the scaphoid goes into volar, but the fracture fragment along with the lunate go to the DC pattern. So this correction is very important when you are doing. So when you are addressing fractures of the scaphoid non-union, you have to address the biology that is taken care by the cancellous bone and the vascular graft, correction of the deformity, and correction of the adjacent carpal bones. That is by VC or DC pattern which you are expecting. So here you have another case. It's a holiday. Shall I wind up or I should continue?
Continue.
Continue? Okay, okay. So I will take maybe 2 or 3 cases more. Okay, so this, Ijaz, can you explain? I have made some diagrams there. So for that, it's easy for you to identify. What is this? Ijaz?
Yes, sir.
So what is this diagnosis?
I think it is metacarpophalangeal dislocation, is it?
Perfect, perfect. So what sort of a dislocation? As Ijaz is rightly identified, it is a metacarpophalangeal dislocation. So there is a dislocation between the which metacarpal and which phalanges?
Second metacarpal and the proximal phalange.
Yeah, very good. So most commonly metacarpophalangeal dislocations happens in the index finger as well as in the little finger, because these are the common areas which are exposed. So what sort of a metacarpophalangeal dislocation is this? So you are going to the next level.
Dorsomedial, sir.
Yeah, so based upon the complexity, the metacarpophalangeal joint dislocations can be a simple or a complex, and it can be easily identified by the X-ray alone. So what sort of a dislocation? What is the importance of identifying a simple or complex? Because if you attempt a simple, it will be reduced immediately. But if you are attempting a complex one, you need to inform the patient that I'm going to try, but the chances of having a successful reduction by closed manner is very less. Most of the time, you need to go for a surgical intervention. And if you convince the patient before, the trust and the patient have the faith in you will be much more. So identifying, is it a simple one or a complex one? Gautam.
It's a complex one because.
So it's a complex one. So how you said it is a complex one? Why you said so? You believe in astrology?
No, sir.
No. Okay, then why you said so? Anybody? Varsha?
If it is complex, it's because that molar plate will be.
So how you identify? This is just an X-ray. You cannot see a volar plate in this. So when you have a simple metacarpophalangeal dislocation in the casualty, if you can identify a simple and a complex, and if you try only the simple one in the casualty, you can serve a lot of, you attempt it many times and the patient, it won't reduce, then you go to the patient and say, but if you say that, the chances of getting reduction is very less because I have identified it is a complex one, but still I will try once. But if it's not coming, then I have to take you to the theater. How will you identify by the X-ray? That's my question.
If fracture dislocation,
if there is a fracture, it is a So, okay, so I will go to the next slide. So I hope so here you can see the volar plate, proximal phalanx and the metacarpal head like this. But it is a symbol where the volar. But what is the position of the proximal phalanx metacarpal head? Johnny, in the phalanx will be parallel or perpendicular? John C? Don't see? What is the position of the proximal phalanx and the metacarpal head in an X-ray? In a simple one. It will be parallel or perpendicular. It will be perpendicular in case of a simple or complex?
Simple.
Simple. So a simple looks much more deformed because looks perpendicular to it. So with this, we can see, is it perpendicular or parallel?
Parallel.
So it's parallel. So a parallel one is most difficult. It's less deformity, but you can expect that the volar plate is likely to interrupt in between. So when you try to pull this down, the volar plate is still there. After it comes over here, it slides back. But here, it will not get entrapped unless you do some mistake. So what is the mechanism, or how will you reduce a simple one? Simple one, if you do a bit of technique, it will easily reduce in the casualty itself. But a complex one, most of the time, you need to take to the theater. So you can easily identify by seeing the position of metacarpal and the proximal phalanx. So in a complex one, the metacarpal and the proximal phalanx will be Akhil, parallel or perpendicular?
So in complex, it will be parallel, sir.
Parallel. Okay. So what is the reduction manner? How will you reduce a simple one in the casualty, Akhil?
Simple flexion we can use without traction.
Yes. So as he has rightly said, if you pull, suddenly this can get entrapped. So you have to hyper extend. Don't do immediate flexion. So you have to hyper extend further, push this fragment till the edge, then only do the flexion. So no traction at all. So first maneuver is, Akhil, flexion or extension?
Hyper extension, sir.
Yes. So you keep the thumb here, your thumb here, push it by further hyper extending, take to the brim, then do the flexion part. But in case of a complex, because of the volar plate gets entrapped, you need to do a open surgery most of the time, almost 90% of the time. So you have two approaches. Either you can approach from the volar surface or you can approach from the dorsal surface. Anybody has seen such a dislocation being reduced in their hospital? Anybody has seen?
Yes, sir.
So how it has been approached, volar side or dorsal side?
So dorsal.
Dorsal. So you remember the steps?
No, so it's long back.
It's a long
So
back.
we saw the volar plate.
Yeah, so both has got advantages and disadvantages. The advantage by dorsal approach is that it is much more straightforward, but you can see the volar plate, but you cannot repair it because once you push it down, it goes below. Then you cannot see it. The another advantage is that the neurovascular bundle, everything is on the volar surface. But if you open up volar surface, you can repair the volar plate, but there is a chance of neurovascular injury, and also sometimes you need to cut the ligaments which underneath is preventing this from reducing. So I hope everybody is very clear about how to identify a complex and a simple one. Sunit, how will you identify between a simple and a complex in X-ray? Sunit Yadav?
Sir, by looking at if the metacarpal and phalanx are in perpendicular or are they parallel? If they are parallel, then it's complex one, and if they are perpendicular to each other, then it's a simple one.
Okay, so most of the time the complex one needs surgery and you have different approaches for that. So we'll move on to the next case. Okay. So Akhil, can you read what is this? The patient is trying to hold a fist and you can see this is the appearance. Sukesh, can you identify what is it? Sukesh, can you say what is the problem with this hand? Trying to make a fist, and this is up here. Yeah.
Flexion tendon injury, sir.
It's a
Lack
flexor
of
tendon
flexion at
injury of the
Of the ring
the
finger. Of the ring finger.
FDP.
ring finger.
FDP.
So,
FDP.
so what is it known as? Jersey finger.
Jersey.
So, Sukesh, which is your longest finger?
Third finger.
Which finger?
Third.
Which one? Sukesh, I can't hear you. Which is your longest finger of the 5 fingers of your hand? Difficult question. Amal? Amal, which is the longest finger of your hand?
Third finger.
Okay. The third finger or the? I think I will stop now because most of these guys are not answering. You get bored.
It's a middle finger.
Middle finger, third finger.
So Amal, can you unmute yourself? Sukesh? Amal, are you there? Sukesh, are you there? Okay, John C. John C, which finger is longest of your hand? John C? Yeah.
Third finger, sir.
The longest is the middle finger. But why Jersey fingers almost every time happens in the ring finger? That's my question. If it is the longest one, that is the one. Because this happens when you try to hold the jersey of your opponent in a game of football or a basketball. So why a ring finger is commonly injured in a jersey finger? Anybody? Shinas?
Sir.
So everybody try to flex your fingers and see. So although the middle finger is longer, when you try to flex, you can see almost all the fingers are in same line. And of which you can see the ring protrudes a bit more in 90% of the cases. So that is the common reason when you try to clench the fist, the ring finger normally have a jersey finger because the more force is applied over the ring finger. So although your finger wise, the length is more towards the middle finger, when you clench the fist, you can see, everybody clench the fist and see, okay, you can see the ring finger is actually protrudes a bit more than the rest of the fingers. And that is the reason why jersey finger is commonly seen in the ring finger. Okay, Shyam, so what do you do for this patient?
Sorry, sir. I have no idea about it.
Okay, so what is the problem here? Which tendon is injured with this?
Flexor digitorum
profundus. So if it is a flexor digitorum profundus, that's what you can make out this. You have to first check whether it is injured or not. So how will you test FDP of the ring finger?
Sir, we stabilize the proximal interfibulal joint and we try to ask the patient to try flexing it.
Very good, very good. So by stabilizing the PIP, by which you are nullifying the action of which tendon? Very good. So FDS and FDP both can flex the fingers. So when you want to check the FDP alone, you have to nullify the effect of FDS. That is mainly by keeping the PIP joint in extension. But how will you check the FDS? Akhil, flexor digitorum superficialis. How will you check the flexor digitorum superficialis of a finger?
Metacarpophalangeal joint.
By flexing the MCP joints,
Okay.
then we ask the patient to flex the PIP joint. Then we nullify the effect of lumbrical.
So flex the MCP joint. Gautam, I think you will be able to answer this.
I don't know, sir.
You don't know Johnson?
Don't know, sir.
Okay. So what we normally do is by hyperextending all other fingers, not only in the metacarpal joint and as well as the interphalangeal joint. So what is the problem? When you do that, flexor digitorum profundus is a multi-pennate muscle. It cannot act individually. So when you do hyperextension, you cannot do the flexion of one finger alone. So you can try it in your hand. When you hyperextend the other fingers at the metacarpophalangeal joint near the knuckle as well as the interphalangeal joint and try to flex the FDP of the ring finger, you will not be able to do it. So you will be only able to do with the FDS. And how will you do the check of FDS?
We will hyperextend all the fingers, and we will check the flexion of the suspected finger.
So hyperextend at which all joints?
Metacarpophalangeal joint and interphalangeal joints.
Very good, very good. But how will you check FDP?
We will stabilize the proximal interphalangeal joint by extending it, and we will ask the patient to flex the DIP, distal interphalangeal joint.
Okay, so that's clear. So this is the way
Yes,
you
sir.
normally do the assessment of FDS or FDP. So when you see this, it's a classic picture of a jersey finger, but still you have to check the muscle before making a diagnosis. And always remember to take an X-ray. Sometimes the avulsion may be with a bony fragment, or sometimes it may not be having a bony fragment. Okay, so if you see the flexor tendon, it has got 3 zones. Okay, zone 1, zone 2, and zone 3 in the fingers alone. Okay, so zone 1 is exclusive the area of insertion of Varsha, which tendon? Zone 1.
FDPs. Distal to FDS.
Yes, zone 1 is the insertion of FDS and distal to it. So the entire area is the insertion of FDS or FDP. Varsha?
It has FDP
FDP.
insertion.
Yeah, so it has got only as FDP insertion. A zone 1 injury means that the injury of FDP alone, because FDS injury cannot happen in a zone 1 injury. Okay, and zone 2 injury, you can have FDS or FDP, both or one of this. Okay, but in a zone 1 injury, you can have only injury of the Srijit, which tendon?
FDP.
FDP. Okay, so a jersey finger is a avulsion of the FDP from this zone. Okay, so it comes down. So sometimes this tendon can go even up to the palm, and there is a classification based upon how much it has retracted. So when you have a tendon injury, what you do? You try to attach this to the bone. So Srijit, how will you fix an ACL reconstruction ligament?
We use an endo button and a interference screw from both tibial and femoral touch.
Yeah, so you bring the tendon to the bone end, or you make a tunnel there?
Tunnel.
So what is the advantage of having a tunnel?
Reduce the area.
Bone to tendon healing.
Yeah, so if you have a tunnel, the tendon healing is almost confirmed, because the tunnel and the tendon, it is going inside, it has got more surface area. So when you attach this tendon to this end of the bone, the surface area is less and the healing chances are less compared to a tunnel. So if you have a FDP tendon injury from the proximal phalanx, you can make a tunnel and reinsert, but we never do it. Why? Just we knowingly we know that okay, the healing will be less, but still we don't make a tunnel and insert it. We normally attach the ligament to the distal part phalanx base just like that, and by attaching with the sutures. So why you don't make a tunnel there, Varsha?
I guess.
No idea. Anybody? Gautam?
Maybe the bone is too friable if we try to make it.
Or the
Lead
extensor
to a
is
fracture.
attachment, like I said.
Yeah. So this picture explains why you don't do it. Because if you make a tunnel, the length of the tendon will be reduced effectively. Hope you understand. If you make a tunnel, that tendon has to go further inside. But this tendon, if you make it a bit short, and this, all the fingers works together. So this is known as a quadriga effect. It's like the horses of a chariot. If you have 4 horses in a chariot, and if one of the horse runs faster, actually it reduces the pace of the entire chariot. So for selecting a chariot horses, the horses should be of the same speed. Otherwise, it affects the pace of the chariot. Hope you understand, Akhil. So if you reduce the tendon, sometimes it may be because of my making a tunnel, sometimes it may be because of the chronic retraction. And if you attach the tendon a bit short, when you try to flex, the only one finger will touch, rest of the fingers will have a lag because the entire tendon works in a synchronity. And this effect is known as a quadriga effect. So is it clear, Shyam? Shyam, do you understood what is a quadriga?
Yes, sir. Sir, sorry, sir. Can you please explain once more, sir?
Let's see how others have. John C, have you understood what I meant? Anybody?
Sir, because of the shortening of the tendon of the making the tunnel.
Yeah.
When we are trying to flex the fingers together, because that the tendon is shortened in that finger, that will go first forward, and all other
very good.
Back. So that is called quadriga effect.
Yeah. So one horse is running faster, rest of the thing has to follow, but that will not effectively increase the pace. So that synchronicity. So when you try to flex your fingers passively, all have to come together. So one of the tendon is tighter by means of a shortening, by making a tunnel or because of this, then rest of the fingers will not be able to come to the fist. Hope you understand. So that is what is a quadriga effect. Is it clear, Shyam?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So you should never make a tunnel because that tunnel will reduce the length of the tendon.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. You can roughen that area to have a better attachment, but never make a tunnel. If you make a tunnel, the tendon will go through it. That will effectively reduce the length of the tunnel. So if you have a chronic case, you should not just think about reattaching, but always think about a graft in between, palmaris brevis or anything in between, so that this effect of quadriga will not be there. Shyam, can you say it once again for the rest of the guys?
So when we do a tunnel and we attach the tendon, the length of the tendon decreases, and as such, so when we try making a fist, the shorter tendon that comes first, and the synchronicity of the other fingers are lost.
Okay, okay, it's very nice, very nicely said. Okay, so we'll move on to last case or last 2 cases. Board, we'll stop.
No.
2 case or 1 case?
2 cases.
2 cases. Okay, okay. So let's go to the next one. So this is, we have just finished with the zone 1. Now we come to the zone 2. So zone in this area, one is your, this is a very common osteoarthritis What's campus chiasma? So anybody?
Sir, it is the
Amal?
passing of the
Okay. Passing of which tendon? Finas, anybody? I can't hear you now. Anybody? Campus chiasma? Anybody? Sham, Gautam, John C. Harsha? Anybody? Ijaz?
It's FDS, sir. It allows the passage of FDP.
Yeah, so the FDS actually makes a small perforations inside and it allows the passage of FDP. So what is the significance of this campus chiasma? So you can see here. So this is the FDS and this is the FDP. So normally FDS is superficial. The entire stretch, the FDS is superficial. But the FDS inserts in the proximal part and FDP goes to the distal phalanx. So when it has to come down to the deep area, it takes a loop around the FDP. But what is the significance is that during its insertion, it takes a twist. Okay, so the direction of the fibers are twisted. So this is very important. So when you have an injury in the zone 2, the fixation has to be perfectly matched even to the twist. So is it going to be more difficult than zone 1 or less difficult, Srijit?
More difficult, sir.
More difficult, and that's the reason a zone 2 injury is known as a no man's land. So what is the no man's land, Srijit?
Between A1 pulley and FTS insertion.
I understand that. So why is it called as a no man's land?
Because it is very difficult to attach the tendon.
Yeah. So what is the no man's land? Yeah, I understand that as well. What is the no man's land?
It's dangerous to step into that region, sir. You avoid it.
Yeah. So what? Yeah. So between the countries, to avoid the dispute between the territory, so some area is considered doesn't belongs to any of the country. Okay, so that is what is a no man's land. So between India and Pakistan, there will be a patch which is neither belongs to India nor belongs to Pakistan to avoid the dispute. So this area is considered as a terror for any surgeons because of the complexity of the FDP and the FDS. So here in zone 1 injury, so if you have a chance to repair, you must start with which zone? Akhil, zone 1 or zone 2?
Zone 1, sir.
Zone 1, because the results are going to be better even if you do a decent job. But in a zone 2, even if you do a decent job, the results will be further poor. So never attempt a zone 2 injury in the beginning of your career. One reason is that you have 2 tendons, and second is that you have a twist in the tendon during its insertion. All